Sarva Bhutani Cha, and sees all beings Atmani, within himself. So the person who has controlled the mind thoroughly through the practice of yoga, and who has come to see the same reality in all beings, who has become a samadarshana, that is, one who sees sameness everywhere. Literally, it means one who sees sameness everywhere. Such a one sees all beings established in himself, or sees the self established in all beings. That is, when he sees everything that he sees the same self everywhere in all beings. And he sees all beings within the self. So as I explained last time, that refers to two aspects of the same thing, that when he looks at anything in particular, he sees himself there. Not himself, Swami Atmarupananda self, not the little self, not the personality, nothing like that, but sees the real self, that which he knows himself to be, the real self, that which he really is. Sees that in everything that he looks at. And then when he looks at the whole, he sees the whole thing within himself. Everything, the whole universe floating within the self. So this is speaking of the state of illumination, when one sees the Atman in everything. And again, remember that language distorts reality. Language has the ability to point towards truth, but in pointing towards it, it's also distorting it. And so when we say he sees the Atman in everything, it sounds like, language makes it sound like, he sees something in all beings. That he's seeing the Atman, as if the Atman is a thing that he sees in all beings. No, it's not that he's seeing a thing called the Atman, which is in all beings. No, he's seeing the self in all beings. And even that doesn't do justice to what he sees, but that's the closest we can get in language. Language, by its very nature, is dualistic. It speaks in terms of the subject seeing an object, where there's the subject who sees the object that is seen, and then the process of seeing. It speaks of everything in terms of objectification. You speak of the Atman, speak of Brahman as if it is an object, speak of God as if God is an object. Whereas it's the all-seeing seer, the subject of all experience. And actually beyond both subject and object. So we always have to remember, when using language or when reading the scriptures which are expressed through language, the problems of language, the inherent problems of language, something that you cannot get away from with language. Language can't be non-dualistic. If it's non-dualistic, it's no longer language. One has transcended the mind itself. So one whose mind has attained purity through yoga, that's the way he translates yoga yuktatma. So one whose mind has been joined to yoga. Here he says one whose mind has attained purity through yoga, who has the vision of sameness everywhere, sarvatra samadarshanaha, sees ikshate, his self existing in all things, sarva bhutastam atmanam, and all things in himself. Here it's all things in his self, but again it comes to the same, all things in himself. Again, because of the difficulty of language. So that is speaking of the Tvam in Tat Tvamasi, thou art that. So the statement "thou art that," which is found in the Chandogya Upanishad of the Samaveda, that Shvetaketu's father tells him, "Tattvamasi, O Shvetaketu, thou art that." So, Tattvamasi, thou art that, is said to be in the Vedanta tradition the Upadesha Mahavakya, the great statement of instruction, because the father is telling his son, Tattvamasi, thou art that. And when one realizes the truth of that statement, then one has the anubhava, the experience of aham brahmasmi, I am that. So Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. So Aham Brahmasmi is said to be the Anubhuti Mahavakya, the great statement of experience, and Tattvamasi, the Upadesha Mahavakya, the great statement of instruction. So in that statement, Tattvamasi, thou art that, there are three elements. Tat, which refers to God. Tvam, which refers to you, the individual. And Asi, the equation of equality between the two, the equation of sameness between the two, the equivalence between the two. And so to understand Tattvamasi, thou art that, we have to understand what Tvam means. And we have to understand what Tat means. So Tvam means you, the individual. And Tat means the cosmic being, that is God, Ishvara. And so to say that you are God is an obvious contradiction. It's ridiculous. It's not true. You, this little puny self that was born and will die and has limited power, very limited knowledge, is equivalent to God. And so the Vedanta tradition says that in order to find the truth of the statement, you have to get rid of the contradictory elements to come to the unifying element of both. So as you know, in the Vedanta tradition, in the non-dualistic tradition, it says that it doesn't mean that you are Ishvara, you are the Lord of the universe, because that would be ridiculous. We're not the Lord of the universe. If we pretend to be, then we pretty soon find out how limited our power is. And so it's not an equivalence between the individual and the Lord of the universe. It's an equivalence between that which is behind both. The consciousness, the infinite self, the Atman, which is Brahman, which is behind both the individual and Ishvara. And so if we take a concrete example, to take one of us, for purposes of illustration, I'll say, speak in terms of myself. I think of myself and I think of Sri Ramakrishna. So to think that I am Sri Ramakrishna, I, Swami Atmarupanandaji, am Sri Ramakrishna, well, that's ridiculous. And that is ahamkara, egotism. To think that I am Sri Ramakrishna. No, Sri Ramakrishna was such a great yogi who realized his identity with God, that is with Ishvara, who was identical with the Ishvara. So Sri Ramakrishna, as Sri Ramakrishna, exists within the hearts of all beings. And of course the same could be said of Shiva or Vishnu or Rama or Krishna or Jesus, etc. That speaking of an avatara or of Ishvara, of God, then to equate myself to them is absurd. And so the Vedanta tradition again says that you get rid of the contradictory elements, what they call the limiting adjuncts, the upadhis in technical terms, the upadhis or the limiting adjuncts. My limited personality, my ego, my mind, my body, and come to the essence of my being. That which, if I go into the deepest part of my being, I find that there's that which can't be negated. If I say neti neti, I can experience the body as an object. I can feel the body. I can see the body. So not that, not that. I can see my mind, my thoughts, my emotions, my imaginations, my memories. So not that, not that. Neti neti, not that. Eventually, I come to pure consciousness alone and find that that's what I always was. I mistakenly identified with this body and mind. I was always that pure consciousness. And once I find that, and then I look at Sri Ramakrishna and see that, yes, behind his Ishwaratva, his godness, the divine qualities of the person Sri Ramakrishna, his identity with God, is the same Brahman, the same infinite self. And so then I realize, oh, aham brahmasmi. I am that same reality which Sri Ramakrishna is. The same thing that Sri Ramakrishna realized, I realize myself to be. And so again, as it's said in the tradition, and as Swami Vivekananda explains, if you make a clay mouse and a clay elephant, well, the clay mouse is not the clay elephant. The clay elephant is grand and huge, and at least reminds us of great power and great dignity and everything. And the clay mouse is just a mouse made of clay. So as a clay mouse, it can never become a clay elephant. But as clay, the two are the same. As clay, they're the same. So I, as Brahman, am the same as Sri Ramakrishna, the same as Holy Mother, the same as Jesus, the same as Buddha, the same as Rama, as Krishna, as Kali, as Shiva. And so it's in that sense that we say, Shivoham, Shivoham, I am Shiva, I am Shiva. Not that my dancing creates the whole universe, and when I play my little drum, that all of the letters of the alphabet come out of my little drum. Yes, I can buy a damaru, a Shiva drum, and I can play it all day long, and no universe is going to come out of it. I just become an annoyance to everybody because I'm making so much noise. And finally, I get tired of it and give it up. And so, no, Shivoham, Shivoham doesn't mean that I am the creator, preserver, and destroyer of the universe. It means that I am the same reality as Shiva. That Shiva, the Lord of the universe, when he goes into meditation and realizes his absolute nature as Brahman, I'm that same Brahman. No difference whatsoever. No difference whatsoever. But when I come back to, if I come back to this person, this body and mind, I know now who I am really. But I also know that this body and mind is not who I am. And so I know that I'm not the creator and preserver of the universe, but I don't care, because I see the whole universe exists within me. The whole universe exists within me, and I exist beyond the universe. And so in texts like the Ashtavakra Samhita, you'll find that Ashtavakra saying in a variety of ways that either this whole universe belongs to me or nothing belongs to me. And Sri Krishna says the same thing in the Gita about himself. So what is true of me is true of God also. And so Shiva, Vishnu, Rama, Krishna, Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, when they are aware of their absolute state, that which they are in their deepest reality, they're aware of the same reality that I am, which I can become aware of also. So when we say that I am God, we don't mean I'm God, the Lord of the universe, the creator of the universe. We know how much we can create. And sometimes it seems that we can destroy much more than we can create, but even our destruction is peanuts. We destroy little things. We break a dish, we break the car, we break little things. So I'm not the destroyer of the whole universe, nor the creator of the whole universe. But who cares? If I am the same reality that the Lord of the universe is, then that is beyond the universe itself. I'm something much greater than the universe, beyond the universe. So that's why great saints who have had the non-dualistic experience, like Meister Eckhart in the Christian tradition, not the only one, but he's the clearest example, the uncompromising example of non-dualistic experience. He says that when he attains to that state, that non-dual state, then he attains to that which is beyond God and all that belongs to God. Beyond God, beyond God and all that belongs to God, beyond the Trinity, beyond the Godhead, beyond everything. So then we become superior, as Swamiji says, even to the Vedas, as superior to the whole universe. We go beyond all limitation, even the limitation that is Ishvara. And so no, we don't become Ishvara, but we go beyond even the Ishvaratva of Ishvara. We don't go beyond the reality of Ishvara, but we become that same reality. So here it's speaking of that one whose mind has attained purity through yoga, who has the vision of sameness everywhere, and sees his self existing in all things and all things in his self. And then verse 30 is said to refer to Ishvara, the Tvam, Tat of Tattvamasi. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam jamai pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha me na pranasyati. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra. One who sees me everywhere. So here Sri Krishna is speaking of himself not as Arjuna's Sakha, his friend, his buddy. Here Sri Krishna is speaking of himself as God, as Ishvara. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra. One who sees me, Sri Krishna, the Lord of the universe, sees me everywhere. Sarvam chamai pashyati, and sees everything within me. So he looks out and sees Sri Krishna everywhere, and sees everything within Sri Krishna. Tasyaham na pranasyami. To him I don't disappear. One can interpret this in a variety of ways, but the usual interpretation is, in one sense, to him I am not destroyed, meaning I do not disappear. Sacha me na pranasyati, nor does he disappear to me. I don't disappear to such a one, nor does such a one disappear to me. That is, disappear means right now God has disappeared for us. We don't see God. We see everything but God, but we don't see God. So God has disappeared for us. So, of course, in truth, God hasn't disappeared. We have just refused to recognize God. We prefer to see matter. We prefer to see a world with people, with living beings and delightful things and scary things as well, painful and pleasurable things, where we have many things to do, all kinds of responsibilities and so forth. We prefer to see that world. When I first heard that, when I first joined the monastery, and Swami Bhashyanandaji used to explain that we see this world because we want to see it. I thought, no, that's not true. I don't want to see this world. I want to realize God. I don't want to see this. But later I realized, no, if wholeheartedly everything within me wanted to realize God, then the universe would disappear in a moment and I would see nothing but God. It's because something within me is tied to this. Something within me finds value in this. Something within me wants to see this. So that's why there are stories of people like Swami Brahmananda when he was Rakal, still a teenager, going to Sri Ramakrishna. And he was begging Sri Ramakrishna for spiritual experience. And Sri Ramakrishna kept telling him that will come in time. Don't worry, that will come. That will come in time. Don't worry about what is going to happen anyway. And he wouldn't leave Sri Ramakrishna alone. And so Sri Ramakrishna finally said, well, let it be as the Divine Mother wishes, which everyone knew always meant that Sri Ramakrishna was going to accede to it because his will and the Divine Mother's will were the same. So then Swami Rakal, the future Brahmananda, went to the Nath Mandir in front of the Kali temple to meditate. And he sat down for meditation, and suddenly he saw this divine effulgence emanating from the temple and coming towards him and engulfing him, and losing his identity. And he got scared to death. He jumped up and ran away. And so Sri Ramakrishna said, you see, you get a little taste of experience and you run away out of fear. So we are like that. We think that we want God. We think that we want to realize the highest truth, but not really. We want to realize God. And that's where we have to start, with wanting to want. And then we have to meditate, we have to pray, we have to do what we can as far as spiritual practice, and one day we will wholeheartedly want it. And when that wanting is strong enough, then we will have the experience of the divine. So, but coming back to the verse, here, tasyaham na pranasyami, to such a one I don't disappear. That is, I am present, fully realized, and such a one doesn't disappear to me. So there is an identity there, that we don't disappear to God, nor does God disappear to us. So the previous verse said Sarva bhutastam atmanam sarva bhutani chatmani, one who sees himself in all beings and all beings within himself. And here it says, one who sees me in all beings and all beings within me. The same thing. So it's actually the same state. When we see the self in all and all in the self, it's equivalent to seeing God in all and all within God. Because then our reality and the reality of God have become the reality behind God. That which is expressing itself as God has become the same. That which expresses itself as me, that which I really am. It's not, again, that's the problem with language. When I say that which expresses itself as me, it sounds like there's something besides me that's expressing itself as me. I'm one thing, and the thing that's expressing itself is another thing. No, that which I am. I am that which is expressing itself as this, appearing to express itself as this. And that which is appearing to express itself as God, the Lord, Ishvara. That is the same reality. And so one who sees me everywhere and sees all things in me, I do not become an object of indirect experience to him. That's the way he explains Pranashyami, that is, I don't disappear to him. And he too does not become an object of indirect experience in me. That's a complicated way of saying the same thing. There's a reason why it's said that way, and that's explained in the commentary, but it eventually comes to the same point, so there's no sense in going through the complicated logic of which gets us to the same thing. The next verse, 31, is actually said by the commentators to be the asi part of Tattvamasi, thou art that. So Tvam we got in 29, Tat in 30, and Asi in 31. So Tvam, I, that which I am, the individual. Tat in verse 30, that which God is, and Asi, the equivalence between the two. So 31 says, Sarva bhutas sthitam yo mam bhajat yekattvamastitaha sarvatha vartamanopi sa yogi mai vartate. So yaha ekatvam astitaha, who is established, the one who is established in oneness, ekatvam astitaha, the one who is established in oneness, sarva bhutastam mam bhajati, the one established in unity, who worships me established in all beings. So one who has become established in unity and worships me, Krishna, God, the Lord, present in all beings, sarvatha vartamanopi sa yogi mai vartate. He exists in all, sa yogi mai vartate, that yogi remains in me, sarvata vartamanopi, in whatever manner he may be. So that yogi who, being established in unity, adores me who exist in all things. Bhajati translates here as adores, which is good. He remains in me, whatever may be his way. So the one who is established in unity, who sees me in all, who worships me in all beings, such a one remains in me. That is, there's an equivalence between that one and me. There's an identity, so that's why it said that this verse is the asi part of Tattvamasi, the art, A-R-T, part of thou art that. So whatever may be his way, that means in whatever way he may exist, that he never loses that identity, in whatever way he may live. He may be a king, he may be a beggar, he may be a wanderer, he may be a householder. In whatever way he lives, he never loses that identity with me. No matter what he does, he never loses his identity with me. As Sri Ramakrishna said, and as the Gita says also, But Sri Ramakrishna also said that someone who has realized God, even if they kill another person, the sin of killing a person doesn't touch them. Now we have to remember that that doesn't mean that a person who realizes God can go about killing somebody. But as we know, that even a policeman doing his duty, who is trying to protect innocent people, shoots one who's trying to kill other people, shoots them, that there's a tremendous effect on the mind of someone who kills another person, even for a good reason. A soldier who's doing his legitimate work, a policeman who's doing his legitimate work, and in the line of duty happens to kill somebody for good reason, that is, to protect other people who are about to be killed. It's very, very destructive to them. And so that's why policemen who do kill somebody, who shoot someone in the line of duty, they're given time off to put themselves back together. They're given counseling and so forth, because you cannot kill a person even for necessary reasons without it having a tremendous effect on you. And so Sri Ramakrishna says that a person who has realized God, even if for some reason they have to kill someone, say it's to protect, if they're in a situation where they have to protect innocent people and have to kill somebody, then it makes no wave in the mind. It makes no effect on them. There's no karmic result from it, because they have no sense of being the doer. So again, we always have to understand that that doesn't mean that such a person can go around killing people and get away with it. No, it doesn't mean that at all. It means that if in the very extraordinary circumstance, and you don't usually hear about realized souls going around having to kill people, but in the extraordinary circumstance that theoretically, hypothetically, if it happened, it would make no impression on the mind, because they see unity everywhere. So in whatever way one may exist, whatever way one may live, it doesn't matter. Swami Atmarupanandaji, Guru Das Maharaj, the great Dutch-American saint of the order, a realized soul, he said towards the end of his life that he understood now that there was no need even for him to have renounced the world, that if he had continued working in an office as he had been working before he renounced the world and joined the order, it would have made no difference, that the experience he had would have remained with him no matter what. So again, it's not that he regretted leaving the office and joining the order. It was just a statement that the external circumstances of a knower of Brahman make no difference whatsoever. So one can be a King Janaka, the ruler of a kingdom. One can be Vyadha, the butcher in the story in the Mahabharata, who had attained to realization through his dutiful work as a butcher, who did his work of butchery and took care of his parents at the same time. That those circumstances didn't matter. One can be in any circumstances and be unaffected by them if one has realized the highest truth. There's a beautiful story recorded by Swami Ishananandaji, whom I had the great blessing of meeting in 1971 and talking to. He passed away not long after that. I think within the year he passed away that I met him. So it was the only opportunity I had, and the only opportunity I would have had to meet a great soul, attendant of Holy Mother, very close to Holy Mother. Those who have read Holy Mother's conversations and life, he's mentioned as Baroda Maharaj, and so a great Swami. He records in his Matri Sannidhe, in the company of Holy Mother, he says that Radhu lived for the niece that Holy Mother used to care for, who was extremely troublesome, very difficult, and always causing Mother trouble. That Radhu lived for a number of years, about 20-something years after Holy Mother passed away. And so Baroda Maharaj took it as his responsibility and his duty to Holy Mother to look to the welfare of Radhu after Holy Mother passed away. And so Radhu became very sick. I think it was in the early 1940s, maybe 1940 itself, 41, 42, somewhere in there. She became very ill. And so Baroda Maharaj took her to our hospital in Varanasi for examination and treatment and so forth. And so there they found that she had tuberculosis. And in those days, tuberculosis was incurable. It was a death sentence if you had tuberculosis. At the most, you could go to a sanatorium and get treatment and nourishing food to extend your life for a while, but you were going to die. And so Baroda Maharaj and the doctors didn't tell Radhu what she had. They just examined her, and Baroda Maharaj found out. And Radhu just told her, well, you're ill, you have some chest complications, but we'll give you treatment and take care of you, and hope that you are better very soon. And gave her some hope for a cure, a false hope for cure. And so then after she was there in the hospital for some time getting treatment, she told Baroda Maharaj that I want to go back to Jairambati. And Baroda Maharaj said, no, let us stay here. You're getting treatment, you're responding to the treatment, let's stay on here. And so of course they were keeping her there as in a sanatorium at our hospital there in Varanasi. And so she insisted that, no, I want to go back to Jairambati. And he said, no, Radhu, please stay here. Let us continue the treatment. And then Radhu said, Baroda, do you think that I don't know what is wrong with me? I have tuberculosis. Does anyone ever get cured from tuberculosis? I know that I'm going to die. And I want to return to Jairambati to die. And I know that you want to keep me here, thinking that you are doing service to Holy Mother, because whoever dies in Benares attains to liberation. So you think that by keeping here, you are serving Mother, because thereby I will get liberation. But do you think that I don't know who Holy Mother was? Do you think that I'm so ignorant? I fully know who Holy Mother was. And she will come for me no matter where I die. Let me die in a ditch somewhere. Holy Mother will come for me. So I want to go back to Jairambati. So she insisted, and he had to take her back to Jairambati, and there she passed away. So again, the idea is that one who has realized the highest truth, then in whatever circumstances they live, in whatever circumstances they die, it doesn't matter. Because they have attained the summum bonum of life, and that can never be taken away in this or in any other world. It's their eternal wealth. And so verse 32 says, Atmarupanandajena sarvatra samam pashyati Arjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. Atmarupanandajena sarvatra samam pashyati Arjuna. Yo, who, O Arjuna, Atmarupanandajena, in comparison with himself. Upama, simile or metaphor, upamya, metaphorically with the self. That is, one who sees in comparison with the self, sarvatra samam, sameness everywhere. So the idea is that one who sees sameness with oneself everywhere, sees no difference between oneself and everything else. We make all kinds of distinctions that I want to feed myself. I don't care if somebody else is hungry. I want to take care of my comfort. I don't care if somebody else is uncomfortable. And at the most, I learn to take care of my family members. That let me feed myself and feed my family members. Let me look to my comfort and my family member comfort. And if I'm big-hearted, I include a few friends and those that I'm concerned about. But one who sees all beings as equal to himself. Swami Vivekananda says that religion is not caring for myself any more than I care for others. That's a very high statement, and that can only fully be done through realization. But it gives us a direction in which to go, a direction that we should start moving in. And we come to there. When we come to that, we've come to the highest realization. which he's talking about here, where one sees all beings as equal to himself, where the happiness of others is the same as his own happiness, the misery of others is the same as his own misery. That was the ideal taught in the path of the Bodhisattva in Buddhism. That was what a Bodhisattva meditated and sought, practiced tapasya and sought to do, to see the sameness in all beings, to see the happiness of others as his own happiness, the misery of others as his own misery. And so here Sri Krishna is teaching the same thing. Sukham va yaridva dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. In the midst of happiness or in misery, who sees the misery of others, who sees the happiness of others as the same among others as in oneself. Sayogi paramo mataha. Such a one is considered to be the supreme yogi. So the running translation, O Arjuna, one who by holding himself as an example, but that simply means one who, in comparison to himself, judges everyone equally, be it in matters of happiness or of sorrow. That yogi is considered superior, or paramo means supreme. That yogi is considered to be supreme, who sees sameness everywhere between himself and other beings, who doesn't think that he is great and his happiness and misery are important, whereas other people's is not. And so there you see the secret of the greatness of someone like the Holy Mother, who saw that completely. Someone like Swami Vivekananda, who saw that. And of course, Sri Ramakrishna, that was the secret of their greatness. And you find that even in much lesser people, but people who are great, but not in the class of a realized soul, but still great. And so you see with someone like Martin Luther King, that he became great. Why? He became great because he felt he saw the sufferings of others and considered those as his own, and worked to correct the injustices towards others as well as for himself. And towards the end of his life, his short life, he was expanding beyond even that racial identity of looking on the African Americans as his community. He was beginning to be concerned about poverty wherever it was found, injustice wherever it was found. That is, his identity had expanded even beyond his ethnic identity to all beings. And so it's for that reason that such people are honored. If it's at the level of realization, then they're worshipped. And if it's at the level of a large identity, but not yet spiritual identification, then such people are highly honored for long periods of history. That's why Abraham Lincoln is looked upon as the greatest of American presidents, because the whole country he felt as himself. And he fought for the unity of the whole country, as he would fight for the unity of his own being. And so that's why Gandhi, whether one agrees with all of Gandhi's politics or not, his political decisions, that is, I know the decisions he made. One can question some of his decisions, just as one can question some of the decisions of Abraham Lincoln or Martin Luther King. But we have to recognize the greatness of the man who saw the whole Indian nation as himself, and saw all of the nation united in himself. So whatever might have been his political decisions and so forth, which one can question, the greatness of the man has to be recognized. So here it's speaking of the ultimate identity, spiritual identity. So, O Arjuna, one who by holding himself as equal, which I prefer, I'm not going to use this translation because I find it very peculiar. O Arjuna, one who by seeing himself as the same with everyone equally, be it in matters of happiness or of sorrow, that yogi is considered supreme. So that is the result of the 29, 30, and 31 verses. lead to verse 32 as the result of that equivalence between the self and God. And then we come to, actually 33 and 34. Those begin with Arjuna's question, and so there won't be time to deal with the question and Sri Krishna's answer, both, and what's remaining. So I won't go forward here. So let me see if there are any questions. If not, we can answer. We can close early, but let me see if there are any questions at this point. Yes, Jayant up in the front here. Okay.
Maharaj, going back to verse number 30.
30, okay.
What you mentioned, that we don't want to see God.
Yes.
Some confusion there. Like God is not an object or anything. Like this is like you feel something. Like your whatever. I'm giving a very crude example. Like few weeks ago, like if you see all the green leaves are coming on the trees, so you feel good. Like it's something so nice, so bright, so vibrant. If you feel like that is an expression that is different, but why do you have to feel like that there is God or something?
Yes, no, that's why I said before that it's a problem with language. So seeing God doesn't mean, oh, there's God. It means experiencing God directly within our consciousness, and that also not experiencing God as an object, but the desire to have that experience of the direct experience of God, again, not as an object, but as an internal experience. That we don't really have deeply within us, and so the feeling of spring when spring has come and the new green leaves are coming out and everything, you feel the joy and the vibrance of new life and everything coming. That's a direct experience that we have. That we have the feeling of the presence of spring, and we feel it inside. We may see outside that the green leaves are coming, but the experience is inside. And so the experience of God is not the same because it's higher than that, but it's similar. That is, it's not that seeing God doesn't mean, oh, there's God. It means that there's an internal experience that it can come as the vision of God's form, and that's good. That will be transformative, but that's at an early stage of spiritual. It's a high stage, but an early high stage. The higher stages are when it's completely internal. So is that what you were asking about?
You feel good internally without, like, it may be an external object, but you feel good something internal.
Yes. And so even if we have the vision of a form of God, say if Shiva appears directly in front of us, the real Shiva appears in front of us as a deity. If it's a real vision, then we see that this is the real Shiva. It's not just a hallucination. I'm not just seeing someone didn't, what do they call that, Photoshop my visual field and stick a picture of Shiva in my visual field. No, I'm seeing the real Shiva. I feel a tremendous joy and uplift. That is inside. I feel an internal transformation. I feel a thrill through my whole being and a purification all through my being by seeing Shiva. But an even higher experience is when I don't even need to see a form of Shiva here. I feel the identity with, I feel Shiva coming into my consciousness, the identification of my consciousness with Shiva. And so that's an internal experience. So it's in whatever, even if it's seeing a form of God out here, it's what we feel inside that's important. It's not what we see outside. And that's why, again, with modern technology, you could produce a hologram of light that looks like Shiva right in front of us right here. You could produce it right here. Yeah. If you've been to places like Disney World or Disneyland, where you go to the haunted house and they have holographic ghosts that appear right in front of you, and they look real. And the haunted house in Disneyland, I've never been to Disney World, so I don't know if they have. Disney World is probably more advanced, but in the haunted house at Disneyland in Anaheim, You sit in these cars and you go along the track, and at one point suddenly you're looking in a mirror and you see that there's a ghost sitting right next to you. And so yes, we could produce Shiva right here, but that wouldn't do any good. So when you have an experience of the real Shiva, even if you see Shiva here, or Vishnu, or Rama, or Krishna, Rama, Krishna, Holy Mother, if you see them here, it's the effect inside that's important. It's not the seeing them out there that's important. It's if you see them out there and it has a tremendous internal effect, then you know that the vision was a real vision. If there's no effect, then it was just a aberration or a hallucination or something. It may not be bad, better than seeing a lot of things we could see, but still it doesn't have any spiritual value. Same with dreams. If in a dream, sometimes we may see Ramakrishna or some deity or something. And if they just come into the dream like an ordinary character and it's interesting and all of that, and we wake up and, well, that was an interesting dream. I saw Sri Ramakrishna in my dream. Well, it's not bad, better than a lot of things you could dream, but it's not a spiritual revelation. But if in a dream we see Sri Ramakrishna, and we feel a tremendous thrill go through us and a purification and an uplift, and we wake up in an inspired state, then know it was a revelation. So the same with seeing and experience. It's not what's out there that we see that's important, it's the effect within me that's important. Any other question? Yes, Swapna has one.
Maharaj, I hope I can say what I'm trying to say. The question is that our body, we borrow all the consciousness that we have in our body and mind from the consciousness that is there as the real consciousness that we say, the real self. And also every cell in our body is using what we have borrowed from there. So it's like, for example, I borrow something from you and I borrow it and you give it to me as it is with you. So if it is, if I borrow that from my body, my mind, everything borrows pure consciousness, why is my body and mind not as pure as the pure consciousness? And the second corollary to that is, why is it difficult to realize that pure consciousness?
Okay, for the first part, comparing the rough but traditional analogy of pure consciousness to a lamp. And so I am the pure consciousness, but this consciousness is shining on this individual body and mind, and I have become identified with it. So I am the pure consciousness, but I think I am this body and mind, which appear conscious, because I've become identified with them. There's the knot between consciousness and matter, which is a false knot. It's a knot of confusion, not a real knot. And so using the analogy of a lamp, I can have a lamp here illuminating the book that I'm reading. And so the difference between a lamp, the light of a lamp, and consciousness, of course, is that consciousness is self-aware. Consciousness knows itself, whereas the lamp doesn't. It's just something physical. And so if you think of the lamp as being self-conscious, self-aware, that I am a lamp and I'm shining on this book, and it forgets that I'm the lamp and just thinks that I'm the light on the book. Well, the lamp may fall on a good book, or it may fall on pornography, or it may fall on all kinds of other things, books on how to steal and how to pickpocket and things like that. I don't know if there are such books, but there well might be. There are books on how to make bombs to kill people, and things like that. And of course, in places like Calcutta, not just in India, in other countries too, but I know in Calcutta, where there used to be a lot of pickpockets, it's much less now, but used to be a lot, there were schools for teaching people how to pickpocket. Not with a building, not brick and mortar schools where you go and you apply and you have to give your matriculation grade grade point average and try to get in, but back alley schools where they teach you how to pickpocket. And so the lamp is shining on the Vedas, or the lamp is shining on a textbook on how to be a pickpocket, or a book about how to make bombs. The light is unaffected by that. And so the light is unaffected by the nature of our bodies and minds. The bodies and minds are what they have become through our past karma. And because we have become confused and don't remember that I'm the lamp which illumines this body and mind, I'm the light of pure consciousness which illumines this body and mind, I think I am the body and mind, then I get involved in the body and mind, and the body wants things, the mind wants things, and I go after them, and then I make compromises and I do things I know I shouldn't do because I really want the things really badly, and so I start trying to get things in whatever way I can without thinking of consequences and not even understanding the consequences. That has nothing to do with the light. That has everything to do with the body and mind. The light is just is unaffected by what it falls on, just as the lamp falling on different types of books. You can, in a projector, film projector, the light can project a good movie, and the light can project a horrible movie. But the light is unaffected. It's just light. And so then the second part of the question was, why is it so hard to...
If the body is, the consciousness itself, and parts of the body, part of the body has taken consciousness to be conscious itself, then why is it difficult?
Why is it difficult to come back to a state of awareness of real consciousness? That's because of forgetfulness. Forgetfulness. Why is it when we're dreaming that we're being chased by a tiger, it's just a dream? Why is it difficult to remember that, oh, I'm just dreaming? Why don't I just remember I'm dreaming? And then the whole thing will fall apart. Eventually, we can learn to remember when we're chased by if it's a recurring dream, we can remember to, when I go to sleep and when that dream comes that I'm chased by a tiger, then let me just remember that I'm dreaming, and the whole thing will fall apart. And it actually works. But it takes a long time before we can remember that. So we see the tiger coming, we've already forgotten everything because we're asleep, and then we run, and then we wake up and we're terrified, and our heart is still pounding even after I wake up. So it's the same thing. I've forgotten who I am. I've forgotten that I am the light of consciousness. I think that I am the body and mind. This is my identity. I am Swami Atmarupananda, who was born on such and such a day in such and such a place in Atlanta, Georgia, and is so many years old, and so many other ideas about who I am. I think that's who I am. I know I'm pure consciousness, but I've forgotten that. So, okay, so we'll stop here. And let me give a closing chant, and then I'll give announcements. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. That infinite reality is full, perfect, and complete. This relative universe is full, perfect, and complete. From out of the fullness of that infinite being, the fullness of this universe has come. And yet that being remains ever the same. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. So for announcements,